Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video on the E46, where in this video we're on the inside of the car. So in my first video I said that I do like these seats and that they're really comfortable, but I wasn't too sure on the colour, and the more that I've lived with them, the more the colour is grating on me. It's a great seat and these bolsters are really adjustable both at the bottom and also at the sides. Just not the style, nor is it the comfort that I'm going for. I want a bit more of a sporty ride and something that holds you a bit better than what these seats do. So in this video, we're going to take these seats out and we're going to get some bucket seats in here. As with every car, you slide the seat forwards and you undo the two bolts that are at the rear. In this case, it is electric, so therefore it makes it a bit easier. But I slide the seat forward, undo the two bolts at the rear, then I move on to sliding the seat backwards, and there's two nuts that are holding the front of this seat onto the car. So now the front seats are completely free. I just need to disconnect the battery and then unplug the seats. So the E46 M3 seats are removed and we're going to go from these to these Recaro Sportster CSs from a Corsa VXR, and yes, they're pretty disgusting right now. I'm hoping they clean up like brand new. The story behind these seats was that some guy had bought a Corsa VXR 2022 plate, brand new from the factory, and had written it off within a couple of months. So he then decided to buy it back from the insurance company and sell the seats. The guy I bought the seats off had bought these seats from the guy and decided to store them in a barn for 2 years because he was going to use them for a Land Rover project, but ended up just storing them. That's why they are absolutely rotten, because it had bird poo and dust and everything that you can imagine that's in and around a barn stored on these for 2 years. However, I was quite confident when I saw the seats in the back of his van that they would clean up quite nice. They were basically new when they went into storage, and you could see underneath all the dirt, the leather was good, and the seats looked pretty good condition. So because of the condition that they were in, I did get a pretty good deal. I got these VXR seats for £420. So that's the first seat clean, nearly. It's got a few bits to do. I need to let it dry, then I'm going to put some leather balm on it, treat the leather, and then I'm going to make sure that there's all spotless on the joints, make sure that everything on the little nooks and crannies is going to get a brush in there, make sure all that's clean as well. But just after a little quick clean, probably about 20 minutes, half an hour on that seat, I'll show you the comparison between what it was to how it is now. So looking at the old seat, obviously there's bird poo everywhere. You can see just crap all over the seat. Moving on to the new one, it does need to dry out and it is going to get leather treated, but it's so much better. That's nearly new. It took me 7 hours to get this bucket seat into this car, and as you can see, I've only fit one. I looked online and I read up about people that had put these seats into multiple different cars, and a lot of fabrication has been needed in most cases, so I don't know why I thought I was any different. But it wasn't the hardest thing to do. It was just a lot of figuring out and a lot of technical little pieces, installing the seat several times, in, out, and finally, as you can see, we are mounted. BMW seats are notorious for being quite low and sitting naturally very low in a car, and these are obviously very old seats in an old car. So the designs were very different back then as to what they are now. The seat rails that I bought for this car come with 2 rails and 4 box sections. The 2 rails go to the stock mounting locations on the car, and the 4 box sections are used to mount the new rails to that seat rail. It turns out that trying to do that with these seats, the seat sat far too high and it just wasn't comfortable. My head was hitting the ceiling and I just didn't feel like I was driving a BMW. So that left me a couple of options. I was trying to retain as much usability as I've already said, however, the boxes were just not working. I then looked at the rails and realised that there's a bit of wiggle room, so I could potentially fit the rails to the car and the new seats directly to those rails, lowering the seat down probably about 1.5 inches. But by doing this, I still sat far too high, so this is the second attempt at mounting. I then realised I may have to sacrifice the sliding ability of these seats and take off the stock subframes and see if I can fit these new subframes directly to the seats and then mount this into the car. I did, however, have to cut the new seat rail in order to fit it to the seat, because where the seatbelt goes, the airbag was in the way. So in order to retain the standard seatbelt, I had to move that around. And as you can see, there is no room whatsoever in order to get these bolts in. It's so tight, I had to use spanners and do 1/8 of a turn at a time just to be able to get this in. So there were parts I didn't actually think this would even work, but luckily, as you can see, we managed to get the first one in, and now I'm putting the second one in. So I don't have the ability to slide it back and forth, but luckily for me, I do have the ability to pump the chair up and down using the stock pump, which means that I can pump the chair up in order to fasten the seat, and then I can pump it back down to a good location. And let's face it, how many times do you actually move your seat back and forward in your own car? And this is my own car, so I don't plan on moving the seat. It's fixed in a permanent position, hard mounted, and that's where it's going to stay. And as far as the passenger seat goes, well, you don't really need to move that either. As long as you've got leg room, you're going to be pretty much fine. As I just said, we've got to put the passenger side seat into the car now, which does involve taking off the stock subframes and the runners, installing the new subframes, but first I've obviously got to cut those subframes to fit around the airbag and the seat belt within that seat. Because I'd already done this with the driver's side, I knew exactly what I was doing, and it was so much easier to get this seat in. It took a fraction of the time, probably hour, maybe hour and a half tops, to do the whole process, and I had the passenger seat in. If only I knew the first time round what I was doing, I would have had them both in within an afternoon. But I guess that's just trial and error. So, a bit high, but this is where this comes into play. There we have two Recaro CS Sportsters from a Corsa VXR in my E46 330Ci, and I could not be happier. There were a few comments in the first video to say keep the M3 seats, don't retrim them, dye them, but I think this is the way forward. This is the best option for me. They are so comfortable, they hug you, and I tell you what, I have driven this car with this seat in so far. It makes the world of difference. You feel like you're in a bit of a race car. With the suspension this has and these seats, you just feel glued to it, and you turn a corner and you don't move, the car doesn't move. It's phenomenal, and how these were put in a Corsa VXR is beyond me. Obviously these aren't the standard seats, so there is an airbag light on the dash. We need to get some resistors, and there's a company local to me that will sort that out for me, and maybe have something special at that company too. And it wouldn't be a car modification if something didn't go wrong. So in typical modern fashion, the seatbelts don't work in this car. The seatbelt buckles in this car don't fit the seatbelt receivers from these Recaro CSs. They are a lot newer than what this car is. These are out of a 22 plate Corsa VXR, and this is obviously a 2002 BMW E46, so that's 20 years of difference. Seatbelts changed slightly, so we have a few options, and for that you're gonna have to come back in the next video. Now, I did have something else planned for this build, for this video, however it hasn't arrived in time, so unfortunately we're gonna have to leave it there with these seats. Let me know in the comments. I know a few of you did want me to keep the M3 seats. Let me know, do you approve of these seats? Would you keep the M3 seats? Personally, this is obviously my car, my choice, and this is my preferred choice. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned for the future videos on this build, and for next video when we sort the seatbelt issue out and we have something else to add to the rear section of this car. I'll see you then.